following program is brought to you in part by Time Warner Cable and Palm Springs Video as a community service. Hi, I'm Janet Ralt. Our mission at the Coachella Valley Community Report is to bring you important local government issues from an inside perspective. We will explore stories and the faces that make up our diverse community. And we'll update you on stories and events that major news stations don't have time to report. We won't be reporting on train wrecks or drug busts, but we will be telling you how these events affect our community and what's being done by local governments to bring them under control. We'll be looking at upcoming events around the valley and reporting on their outcomes. And we'll be talking with the people who make things happen. So sit back and relax, and don't expect our first broadcast to look like world news tonight. Our promise to you is to make each broadcast better and more informative than the one before.
Now, the reason that I'm here today, many of you know that I am really very frustrated with the amount of money that is being given away by the City of Rancho Mirage by redevelopment funds. I know of no other city that gives development funds away the way Rancho Mirage does. Go to Rancho Mirage. Boy, they're suckers. They'll pay for everything for us. You're not only giving our property away, our prime #1 property, and you're paying for everything on top of that, but you're giving them the title to it.
Redevelopment is often a confusing issue. We've asked Rancho Mirage City Manager Patrick Pratt to give us an overview.
The redevelopment process really originated in the 1950s under the California Constitution that allowed the creation of redevelopment agencies by both city and county governmental agencies. And over the years, there have been the establishment of redevelopment agencies both in big communities, big cities, as well as small communities. I believe today there's probably over 300 redevelopment agencies in the state of California. There are probably 600, 700, 800 project areas within those redevelopment agencies. A project area is a physical geographic area that's been determined by a redevelopment agency to need redevelopment. The primary purpose for redevelopment is to eliminate blight. The definition of blight is fairly broad, but in general terms you can talk about blight in deteriorated vacant buildings. Blight is also established by the lack of infrastructure to an area, the lack of sewer, water, electricity. Blight is also defined by state law as the small parcelization, multiple ownership of land, so that land has been subdivided in a manner that the assemblage of property is impossible to be done by the private sector, and thus the redevelopment agency can assist in the assemblage of land for redevelopment purposes. For example, if you had a 10-acre site that the community wanted redeveloped, and that 10-acre site was owned by 10 individual property owners, you could assist in the redevelopment of that area by helping to assemble the acquisition of all those properties. So what a redevelopment agency does is you enter into a project, and let's say, for example, you create a project area in 1983, and you create that base level of tax increment for that area, let's say $1 million. That's what's in that project area at that time. All that money from that point prior continues to flow to all the other taxing agencies, the school districts, the water district, the Riverside County, etc. It's the growth of that increment over time as a result of redevelopment activity that generates the money, the tax increment flow, to be used for redevelopment projects. Again, it's not an increase in the tax rate. It's not an additional tax. It is the growth of the existing tax that is what both the redevelopment agency benefits during its life and what ultimately other taxing agencies will benefit when the redevelopment agency project area ceases. Redevelopment purposes have to be very specifically outlined and defined in your redevelopment plan. So every agency within their plan, it is very clearly articulated what can be done and what can't be done and how those increment funds can be used. The redevelopment agency is a separate public entity. Its debts are not debts of the city. Those allocation bonds that are issued by a redevelopment agency are not obligations of the city or the city's general fund, and again are paid through the growth of that tax increment by redevelopment activity that would occur in a project area. I think one of the obvious questions when you talk about redevelopment is, how is redevelopment benefiting my community? Besides what I think the obvious, where when you're talking about redevelopment in the form of building infrastructure, again specifically addressing Rancho Mirage, we've put probably $70 million of infrastructure, storm drains, widening roads, widening bridges, building low water crossings over the Whitewater River channel that were always being flooded out. Now you can pretty much traverse those roads when even you get a little bit of rain. We've built flood control projects up in the alluvial fans in the mountains. So all of those efforts have obviously benefited the community because we're no longer concerned about being flooded out, whether it be your home or your business, or having inconveniences in traversing through the community on our roadways due to flooding. I think the other bigger issue is you have to again remember that the city of Rancho Mirage, being a low property tax city, generates the money to operate and run the city through basically 3 revenue sources. Those revenues are the big bulk of our operating budget. So if we can grow those revenues through new retail activity, new restaurants, potentially a new hotel, those would go to the general fund. Even when the redevelopment tax increment stops, we've now brought money into the city's general fund through redevelopment activity that will be ongoing for years to come. Let me emphasize again that those decisions on what can and should and will ultimately be built, those land use decisions, are not made by the redevelopment agency. The redevelopment agency does not have that authority. That authority lies with the city council.
For a long time, many desert residents have been looking for a fitting way to memorialize one of the most memorable characters the desert has ever known. Dennis Arcuri, Legislative Assistant for County Supervisor Roy Wilson, has some exciting news on that front.
Virtually everyone remembers the former singer, songwriter, actor, comedian, restaurateur, mayor, and Congressman Sonny Bono. And almost everyone remembers his tragic death in a skiing accident in Colorado. Since that day, there have been sporadic attempts to get something named after Sonny Bono. These efforts almost always ran into some sort of trouble. The tribute was not important enough, say, or it was too difficult to pull off. You can't memorialize a favorite son by naming a drinking fountain after him, and renaming a major thoroughfare is always a major hassle and sometimes, oftentimes, very controversial. My boss, Supervisor Roy Wilson, has been giving this a great deal of thought, and he's arrived at a conclusion which offers both large-scale appropriateness and simplicity. No one will be inconvenienced, and no one will think this planned tribute is too small. On Tuesday, January 23rd, Supervisor Roy Wilson introduces his plan for the Sonny Bono Memorial Freeway, which simply gives Interstate 10 through the Coachella Valley a name. And it gives it a name which many local residents will probably feel appropriately recognizes a man who became a worldwide symbol of Palm Springs and the entire Coachella Valley. The details are yet to be worked out, but the county board and our staff and our state legislators are being asked to cooperate in the effort to have the freeway renamed. It'll most likely include the stretch from the Highway 111 cutoff in the pass area to a point just east of Dillon Road in Coachella, but as I say, the details are still to be worked out. The Sonny Bono Memorial Freeway, coming to a location near you, we hope, in the very near future. Janet, back to you.
The city of Palm Desert prides itself on its city parks. Councilman Bob Spiegel told us a little bit about what's new and what's coming down the road for the city of Palm Desert, starting with the Washington Charter School.
Washington Charter School is the oldest elementary school in our city and one of the oldest in the valley. In fact, they just passed 50 years. And with that, they were given a grant because of their age of $1 million to remodel a school. But in today's economy, $1 million doesn't go very far. So in working with the superintendent of schools, Doris Wilson, and the principal of Washington Charter School, and our staff, we were able to work on an agreement whereby the city would build them a new playground. And that's kind of unheard of here in the valley, with the caveat that when it wasn't a playground, it'd be a park. And so their playground is open to the public after school and on the weekends and during the summer when there is no school. And during the school day, it's a playground. And so the neighbors can use it, use all the facilities, and the school does. So it's a win-win kind of situation. Jeff Winklepleck, who is on our staff in charge of creating parks, and the Park and Recreation Commission got together, put the plans together, and I represent the council, by the way, on the Park and Recreation Commission, and submitted them to the school district. They loved it, and if you have a chance, go over and take a look at it. It's terrific. It really is, and the people are enjoying it, both the students, particularly the students and the principal, I think, but also the residents in the neighborhood. The second park is a park that when I ran for city council the first time, which was over 5 years ago, I had as one of my objectives to put a park in the, at that point, newly annexed area called Palm Desert Country Club over off of Washington. And it finally came to fruition. We opened a community park there. It has a dog park, it has a rose garden, it has volleyball, it has all kinds of children's playground equipment, barbecue, restrooms, and it's being used by just everybody in the neighborhood, and I've got nothing but compliments. It's a terrific park. The city currently has two parks in the planning stages. One is a hiking park that's up Highway 74, just on the other side of the wash from the Presbyterian and Episcopal churches. And that's going to be used by our residents that would like to hike the mountains that can't do it today because of lambing season and the bighorn sheep and closing down many of the trails. So this trail will go all the way from Palm Desert to Palm Springs. It connects with Bureau of Land Management areas and the county, and I don't think it'll ever be developed, so it'll be there in perpetuity. The second park will be, it's in the planning stages, will be on Country Club next to the industrial park. Will not be as large and won't include as many things, but it could possibly include a playground for a tentative grade school that would be built adjacent to the park. In my opinion, one of the greatest things a city can do for its residents is provide activities. And there's nothing greater than the parks that we have in Palm Desert. A used park is a safe park, and our parks get tremendous amount of use. And as the population grows, the need for additional parks grows, and the city has been able up to this point to provide them, and I hope they will be able to continue to do that.
Growth is a dynamic buzzword in the Coachella Valley these days. Most people who live between Palm Springs and Coachella know that more people are moving in, more businesses are setting up shop, and more buildings are going up. The what that is happening in the valley is obvious. The how and why are not quite as clear. Kara Van Dyke explains the how and the why of one community growing strong.
Thanks, Janet. You don't have to live in one of the many Coachella Valley cities to know this area is growing. Take Del Webb's Sun City Palm Desert, for instance. This community began in 1992 in an unincorporated area of Riverside County. And although Sun City is not an actual city, the community is seeing the effects of impressive valley growth.
We moved in here in 1993, and to tell you the truth, we actually put a deposit on our lot in September of 1991. There was not even a model. There was no streets, there was nothing, not even a shovel in the sand yet. And we moved in 1993, and it started with a very small community, a few hundred people. And of course, 8 years have gone by very quickly. We have so many activities, it's just unbelievable. We are a city within a city. We're surrounded by Palm Desert, La Quinta, and of course we're neighbors to Palm Springs, Cathedral City, and so on. But the growth within our community has had such an impact on all of the communities outside, from an economic standpoint, as well as many others, from the services, whether it's a plumber or electrician or whatever it may be. Everyone in this valley knows Sun City Palm Desert, okay? At the beginning is, what is it? And then it became, where is it? And now everybody knows everything about it. So we're very popular in the valley.
Although Del Webb builds some of the highest quality homes in Southern California at Sun City Palm Desert, it's the active lifestyle that the company really promotes, and it was that already established active lifestyle that drew Del Webb to the Coachella Valley.
Del Webb selected the Coachella Valley, and specifically this Palm Desert area, for I would say the crown jewel of the Sun City family, because it offers a relaxing lifestyle. It offers a unique place to retire with so many amenities in the valley, so much to do, but at the same time, it's got the beauty and the tranquility that the Coachella Valley has to offer.
Sun City Palm Desert is about 1,600 acres, and after 8.5 years has about 2,900 homes and 5,000 residents.
The fun part about that is we're a little larger than the city of Indian Wells, so we are growing.
In fact, by the time Sun City Palm Desert is complete, Del Webb expects the community to have grown to around 5,000 homes and about 9,000 residents. And because Sun City Palm Desert is an age-qualified community, meaning its residents are 55 and older, the people who move in have a special economic impact on the area. Besides the millions of dollars Sun City residents spend on consumer products and services each year, they also put less of a demand on the infrastructure and some governmental services. For instance, the population of people 55 and older require 35% of the normal levels for street maintenance, 41% of the normal levels of police services, and 79% of the normal levels of water consumption.
It's a wonderful population that we're bringing to the desert. Folks enjoy what the Coachella Valley has to offer, not only here in our beautiful community, but all over the valley.
Sun City Palm Desert is growing with its population by building amenities suggested by its residents. Sun City's 2 clubhouses offer features including 3 restaurants, a speakers hall, a state-of-the-arts fitness center, a library, a computer lab, and much more.
Well, Del Webb is a specialist in the active lifestyle for our active adult population. And one of the things that we do is we provide amenity-rich communities so that people can be social, mentally, and physically fit in their active adult retirement or pre-retirement years.
Many retirees are looking for an active and diverse lifestyle like that offered in the Coachella Valley. That's why Del Webb is enjoying the growth that is happening inside and outside the walls of Sun City Palm Desert.
As the growth happens in the valley, it's moving further and further east. And right now we're at Washington and I-10, and it's the corridor of growth, not only Palm Desert, but as you move into La Quinta. And I think that more and more people are going to relocate to the Coachella Valley, and we're here to offer them a wonderful place to live
In Sun City Palm Desert, Kara Van Dyke for Coachella Valley Community Report.
As the energy crisis heats up, Palm Springs Mayor Will Kleinding sheds light on our crisis and helps to answer the important question: what's being done by local and state governments to correct the problem?
We have an energy crisis. We agree on that. How do we resolve it? Historically, the city of Palm Springs has been a leader in the area of trying to find ways of reducing energy costs. I'll go back with you now to 1982, where the city of Palm Springs at that time designed and constructed for the citizens of Palm Springs 2 cogeneration plants, one directly behind Palm Springs City Hall and one at our leisure center at Sunrise Park. The intent of a cogeneration plant was quite simple. It's a large engine that is fueled by natural gas that generates electricity. It also produces heat. There's the cogeneration. The heat that comes off of this massive engine then produces steam. Steam has 2 purposes. One, in the winter, it provides the steam to warm the buildings. And in the summer months, we want to cool the building. The steam is then put into a chiller and is used to compress and chill the water that gives us the cold water we need for cooling. So the cogeneration plants that we built in 1982 are still in service today. Currently, our cogeneration plants in the city of Palm Springs are producing more energy than we utilize for our city buildings. What do we do with that extra energy? We sell it back to Southern California Energy. We put it back on the grid. Now, there are days when we have higher demands and less demands, so our sale back or reliance upon grid varies based on our needs. But for the most part, the city of Palm Springs in the past fiscal year, actually sold enough electricity back to SCE and generated enough electricity to keep our costs down to where we actually produced $120,000 in revenue. That was never our goal, but it's a side benefit to the fact that we now control the fate of our electricity through cogeneration. A bigger picture. How do we look at it from a city model or a valley-wide regional model? CVAG, the Coachella Valley Association of Governments, is working with all the 9 cities in the valley and other neighboring cities and many of the Indian tribal concerns in the valley to seek solutions towards regional problems. There was a meeting recently where we talked about how can we unify this tremendous political force to solve, or address at least, this energy crisis. Scenarios to be looked at would be similar to what we did here in Palm Springs, but on a larger scale. Could we, in theory, produce a plant that could generate enough electricity to service the needs currently of the Coachella Valley and additionally future needs for future growth to ensure our economic growth and expansion well into the next decade? Question mark. Can it? Yes. Concern. Would this be an environmental issue? I assure you not. That there is not a political leader that is a member of CVAG that serves any community in this valley that would ever give their vote nor their endorsement towards a plant that would produce pollution. That what we would look for is a clean solution to provide cheap, reliable electrical power to all of the people that live in the Coachella Valley. And that's what we're looking at right now. Now, in the city of Palm Springs, I'm cognizant of what our power demands are here for a city, not the city government, but everyone that lives and works in the city of Palm Springs. We're asking each city to find out what their power demand is, and we'll add it up to a column and find out how many megawatts that is. Then we'll determine whether there's viability in developing a power plant to service those needs with, if you will, enough cushion for spiking higher demands, lower demands, and eventual growth and expansion so we can continue to sustain a growing, vibrant economy. Is it crazy? No. Is it viable? Yes. Is it being looked at? Yes, because of the leadership profile in the Coachella Valley, we will investigate it. We talked a little bit about a long-term solution. Let's talk about a short-term solution. Unfortunately, the reality is there is not enough power currently in the month of January 2001 to sustain ourselves. That's January. What happens in the spring when we start to warm up? What happens in the summer when we start to warm up? It is highly unlikely that new generating plants will be constructed in that period of time in the state of California. It is possible that through the work of the governor's office in Sacramento, that there can be other sources outside of our borders that can secure us enough electricity to sustain us through that heating up, that summer month. One of the concerns we all have expressed repeatedly, and I'll express it again here today, is that all of us, both on a personal individual level, at a business level, and at a governmental level, must take the necessary steps to conserve. You must look now with a different eye as to what is being run in your home, in your business. If you do not need a light on, turn it off. If you're going to leave the room, turn off the lights. If you're not using the computer, shut it down. Try to conserve electricity. The governor has asked for a 5 to 7% reduction by everybody. The city of Palm Springs is taking that seriously. We are reviewing everything we use currently and trying to reduce the demand for power, whether on our properties or within the city, on streetlights or otherwise. We will not jeopardize the safety for illumination purposes in our community, but we will address that non-essential use of electricity so we can have more power on the grid. For those that are concerned about will they have enough power, there are programs in the state that will provide adequate, affordable power to those who are less fortunate, those who are economically strained. The difficulty in that model, though, is the assumption is that everyone is getting power and they can control the cost to you for that power. But I am not clear at this point, and will be seeking this solution for the benefit of our constituents, if there are rolling blackouts and the power is simply turned off in your area, what will happen to you? We have no ability to give you any kind of guarantee that that power will be provided. Now that's for the private residential user. Many of the larger commercial users that have a program that they're working with SCE, where they are permitted by SCE to turn off the power, interruptible power, and shut down their operations when there's not enough energy to go around. What they have been looking at, and in some cases have done, is they have built their own generating plants inside their hotels, inside their larger businesses, to ensure that. Now, let people realize that those institutions that provide critical and emergency power, such as hospitals, fire stations, they are always set up with backup generators. There will never be a shortage or a reduction in power. It will be clearly seamless. If power were shut down in Palm Springs today, Desert Regional Medical Center would have power by its generators. That's an assurance I want to give everyone listening, that you're never in threat there. And what we're trying to work out in conjunction with the state level issue is how do we get power to those who really need it? How do we assure them that these new increases in prices and rates won't affect them adversely? And there have been lines drawn on the economic chart to say those below will be taken care of. And we're trying to make sure that that line is still in place today, because there are too many people in our community that cannot afford any more electrical bills. They cannot do it. And we're not going to force people to decide whether to have air conditioning or to feed themselves. So we'll fight for that one.
We will be following this story as it develops through the Coachella Valley Association of Governments and keep you informed on the progress of the valley-wide energy plans. Thank you for joining us in our first 30-minute report. We hope you've enjoyed the information we brought to you and that you've learned something as well. We certainly did. One thing we learned is 30 minutes is not enough time to cover all the stories we had planned. So join us next week as we discover what Fritz Froschinger, former director of the Palm Springs Desert Museum, is doing at the Mary Pickford Theater. What's put the spark back in downtown Palm Springs, how the city of Palm Desert is solving some of its traffic problems, and a special report on Riverside County activities from correspondent Dennis Arcuri. We'll bring those stories to you and more. See you then. For the Coachella Valley Community Report, I'm Janet Rawl. The proceeding was brought to you as a community service by Time Warner Cable. This has been a Palm Springs Video Television production. The following program is brought to you in part by Time Warner Cable and Palm Springs Video as a community service. Welcome to another edition of the Coachella Valley Community Report. Hi, I'm Janet Rawl. This week we explore details regarding the electric crisis with a local expert and what Riverside County is doing to prepare for rolling blackouts. Also, who's bringing team spirit to Palm Springs City Hall? Has your neighborhood turned into part of the Daytona 500? Find out what Palm Desert is doing to curb speeding on their residential streets. But first, movies aren't the only thing coming to the new Mary Pickford Theater in Cathedral City. The Cathedral City Redevelopment Agency has contracted an expert to bring in one-of-a-kind items from the estate of the legendary screen star Mary Pickford. These items will be on display when the theater opens. Taking on the task of deciding which pieces to display is Fritz Froschiger, former director of the Palm Springs Desert Museum.
I was contracted by the city of Cathedral City to curate an exhibition here. We're standing here in front of the City Hall to curate an exhibition which will be semi-permanent of the effects and artifacts owned by Mary Pickford and her husband Buddy Rogers. And Buddy Rogers' widow, Beverly Rogers, is sort of spearheading all of this, being, very close to the whole thing. So my charge is really to find out what's available from the estate of both Mary Pickford and of Buddy Rogers, and determine what is proper to go into an exhibition that would really talk about their legacy in the world as these great stars. As a curator, that's what you have to do. You have to decide what is it that really says the most about these people, tells the story, and then have to interpret it and get it to the public so they understand it. So that, the design is part of it, the curatorial, which is sort of being a historian and being a diplomat with the people you're working with, and then working with the construction and the architect as well. So, it's a multi-level job. And in the end, we hope when this Mary Pickford Theater complex opens, within it will be this wonderful exhibition of the artifacts, photographs, some memorabilia like their own personal clothing and various things that seem appropriate. And then on top of that, there will be a little multimedia display as well. So it has to be the kind of thing that will grab you when you first see it, and hopefully you'll come back. And then the other part of that is once everybody's seen everything, over time, you don't want to have the same artifact sitting there forever and ever. So we're thinking about that in terms of a changing exhibition from time to time, just to keep it lively. And obviously, the whole area of the Coachella Valley is thought of as sort of a playground of Hollywood, and it was old Hollywood that really made it. And who's the personification of old Hollywood? Mary Pickford, and subsequently Buddy Rogers. The fact that Buddy Rogers and Beverly Rogers lived here for quite a long time makes an obvious connection. And I think the city's just being smart. Let's hold up our hometown heroes. There are probably 2 or 3 generations now that don't know anything about her. I have a 20-year-old son, and when I got this project, I said, "Do you know who Mary Pickford is?" He says, "No, I can't say as I do." Well, now you've got that's again part of my charge, is to tell the story in such a way that people make the connection, understand that however big stars are today, nobody was as big as Mary Pickford. She was known all over the world by, and in a much different age when transmission of information wasn't that quick. So because of that connection with their life here in this area and the new city, new theaters, show business, it all comes together in kind of a package.
Nicely done.
Well, I would just like to say that I'm really thrilled to be tapped to do this. It's an honor for me. I'm glad that they came to me. It's something I care about. I'm a big fan, and I'm part of the film festival too. It means a lot to me, and to have Beverly here with us to be able to guide me through the important things, so that we get it said right and the honor is proper. Cathedral City should enjoy a lot of good karma coming from this, and I hope that people will want to come down and see it, and will spend a lot of time coming back and forth and over the years.
Palm Springs' new city manager, David Reddy, is kicking off a customer service program called Team Palm Springs. The overall goals of this quality service program will be to increase customer service and accessibility of city employees. David Reddy tells us more.
We're very excited about Team Palm Springs. Just the name of it itself envisions the idea of a team, and that's what I hope the community will come to see Team Palm Springs as. It's our quality service initiative. We believe that citizens have certain needs and expectations of levels of quality of service, and that's what we want to deliver. Team Palm Springs internally at City Hall means that we are the team of employees, of City Hall employees, who are putting together the services that we deliver. And to the residents of Palm Springs, we want them to see that team signifying and symbolizing that we are their team. We're delivering their service. And so we're working very hard to produce that kind of high quality in our service delivery. It starts at the top management, from the city manager's office to the department heads, and moves down all the way to the lowest level employee in the city government. And that's the beauty of it. It's a change of culture. It's education. It's how do we produce a quality service? What do the citizens want? What's going to make them happy? The key thing is every time a citizen has touches a city employee or a city program, they have to walk away knowing they've been helped to the best of their ability. It's been a professional and courteous service, and they know that we're there to serve them. And it's building trust also. First of all, very fundamental benchmarks. How many streets do we sweep this year versus how many will we sweep next year? What's our response time in fire and police and those sorts of things? So that's the hard data that we can compare to year. But it's more symbolically, I think, even than that is the citizens' attitudes. You start to hear it, you start to see it. They come to City Council, they send us notes, we hear it on the street. You did a good job, or service is improving, and that's what I'd like to do. It almost goes back to the Mayor Koch of New York would always say, how are we doing? So in essence, in the larger picture, we're always going to be saying to a citizen, how are we doing? And we want to know, and we care what you think about. There's a thought out there that it's hard to do business in the city of Palm Springs. We're going to change that. For example, we're going to have a campaign that says Palm Springs is open for business. So that means whether you're a homeowner wanting to put an addition on your house or an entrepreneur wanting to begin your business in Palm Springs, we're going to make it business friendly. For example, we just started that the planning department used to be closed during the lunch hour, the permitting. That has changed. We're open 8 hours a day. Those sorts of things are small, but they're very symbolic as to what we want to do. A second example of that is if you have a project you want to do, we are creating a war room type of atmosphere that will put you in a room with all the people involved in the permitting process, and we'll lay it out for you, and you'll have one person to deal with and get your answers done and not be bounced around from department to department. And those are the things that are going to make a difference in Team Palm Springs. You can call one number, the city hotline, which is 778-PSCH for Palm Springs City Hall, and that will connect you to any person, program, anything at City Hall. And that's just one of the things that we're doing that's going to make City Hall more accessible for all citizens.
Eisenhower Medical Center is continuing to hold its series of monthly lectures at Sun City Palm Desert. Medical doctors, PhDs, and non-traditional experts are addressing topics from diabetes to dementia. This is the third year of monthly presentations given by Eisenhower at Sun City, and Monday night's lecture was presented to a standing room only audience. Here to tell us more is Susan Higgy, Program Director for Eisenhower.
Joining us here at Sun City Palm Desert in the beautiful new community hall, which has just opened recently, and we are privileged to have a wonderful speaker here tonight to talk to the community about diabetes. And we basically hold these lectures here once a month, but we also have these lectures at the Annenberg Center for Health Sciences located at Eisenhower Medical Center. So people are able to find out about a wide range of medical conditions and basically take better care of themselves. We also are privileged tonight through the Desert Diabetes Club to have free glucoscan tests for the people that are attending this lecture, so that individuals are going to be able to find out if in fact they might have a high glucose reading, so they might be a borderline diabetic, and what better way to find out and to become educated.
Dr. Joyce Vu, a board-certified internist whose specialty is diabetes and metabolism, informs us that type 2 diabetes makes up the largest part of the diabetic population and is often called the silent killer due to its lack of initial symptoms. We asked the doctor, who's at risk for this disease?
Patients, the largest group is actually the group with type 2 diabetes, because they consist about 80 to 90% of all the diabetic population. And a main problem with those people is actually the cardiovascular aspect of the disease. It's not so much the microvascular aspect like the eye disease and the nerve disease and the kidney disease, but what really is important is the effect of the large blood vessels like the heart, the brain, and the peripheral arteries, and they're the group of people who are at very high risk for these complications.
Jody McCluskey, chairman of Diabetic Alert Day, a valley-wide diabetic event, tells us what symptoms and conditions to look for.
They could, one is called polyuria, where you go to the bathroom a lot, and then also you can have polydyspnea and polyphagia, is when you eat a lot, you're real hungry, or you're real thirsty. And so those are some of the signs of having diabetes.
McCluskey's company, Precision Ultrasound, administers free glucose testing. For more information, you can reach them by calling 327-6770. Jury duty, a major headache, right? Well, the County of Riverside is moving ahead to make things a little easier on jurors. Dennis Arcuri has the scoop.
A new parking lot at the Larson Justice Center is just about ready for use. And you know what that means? It means an end, hopefully, to the major parking hassle that has plagued jurors for some time. It doesn't mean you'll be celebrating when you get your jury duty notice from the county, but it should definitely help that there are now on the order of 140 new parking spaces just to the east of the Larson Justice Center building in Indio. But parking isn't the only thing that's getting an upgrade in the county's East Valley infrastructure. The new coroner's facility, which will be a godsend to bereaved Valley residents, is proceeding nicely. The project is set to get underway this month with a summer opening date on South Oasis. The county is also moving ahead on a one-stop service center which will house offices for the Department of Public Social Services, the Economic Development Department, the State Employment Development Department, and College of the Desert. It's a complete new lease on life for the old Target building at Monroe and Fred Waring in Indio, and it brings together a vast array of services designed to help people get training, get connected with jobs, get on with their lives. The County of Riverside is also expanding the juvenile hall on South Oasis Street in Indio. Another 40 or 50 beds are planned for that facility. I don't pretend that that's a comprehensive list of the projects being undertaken, but it gives you an idea of the improvements you can expect in county facilities and services in the Indio area in the months to come. Take it away, Janet.
As the population of Coachella Valley grows, so does the number of cars on our roads. The congestion results in some drivers speeding, trying to both outrun the red lights and make up for lost time. Traditional means of slowing traffic down are not always effective. In Palm Desert, a neighborhood traffic enforcement program is having a positive effect. Mark Greenwood, senior transportation engineer for the city of Palm Desert, explains.
The steps that we had to take were to make sure that speed limits in Palm Desert were based on engineering and traffic surveys, which were required by the California Vehicle Code, in order for us to enforce with radar. And of course, radar is our most effective tool for traffic enforcement, for speed enforcement. We had to raise the speed limits on certain streets because we're required to post speed limits based on an engineering and traffic survey. That engineering and traffic survey has to account for many things, and one of those is the actual speed that drivers travel on that street. In the past, when we had a request from a citizen, we might try to install signs or some kind of device, and it frankly would be marginally effective, where now we can apply the enforcement program and have a real effect and have the people who are causing the problem stop. And this has resulted in receiving fewer repeat complaints on streets that have historically been a problem. Initially had about 14 streets in the program, which has been ongoing for about a year and a half now. We're now down to only having to have intensive enforcement on 4 streets, so that's a sign of the effectiveness of the program, that 10 of these streets no longer have serious and recurring problems. The way that we add new streets to the program is based entirely on citizen requests. This isn't something where we go out and seek streets to find locations to write tickets. It's entirely as a response to citizen concerns. If there are streets that citizens want to bring forward to us, they can just contact the city at 346-0611 and report that to us, and we have to conduct a series of studies, and ultimately it has to go to City Council for approval to be included in the program.
Lack of control caused by deregulation or shortage of power plants in the state of California. What's the real reason behind our electric crisis? Different perspectives lead to different conclusions. Kathy Minton, assistant to the city manager of Rancho Mirage, helps us to understand more about what's going on.
If you're looking at parties that have a role to play in how we got here, the list is long. The list is very long. It ranges from responsibilities at the federal level, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, our own California Public Utilities Commission, the California Energy Commission. I think the investor-owned utilities have had a hand in what has happened, to the extent that they were forced to divest of their generating plants by the law. The legislature said you will sell some of your generating plants. They did that. That means they lost control over that particular supply. I think there's more than enough blame to go around to many parties. In terms of solutions, the solution is extremely complex, and it depends on your perspective. Are you trying to solve the problem for the customer, for the consumer of electricity, or are you looking to solve the problem of the shareholders? That means the solution that you arrive at is different. The real question is, can the legislature come up with a solution that somehow combines those? I still think that's a narrow focus. We definitely need to get more supply in the state of California that is subject to staying in California. I think if we suffer the impacts of having generation plants in our communities, then our communities deserve to be able to have that same supply of energy when it becomes critical. So I think that part of the solution needs to be aggressively pursued by the state, by the PUC, by whoever, including local jurisdictions. Local jurisdictions have a lot to say about land use in their communities. I know it's not something people want to have built. A power plant next door to you, I'm sure, is not something that you would like to have. But I think we all have to recognize, if you want to, when you go home, press the garage door opener, have the door go up, flip the switch on and the lights in the kitchen, and open the refrigerator door to get a cold Pepsi, then you better think about where that comes from, and maybe you do have a responsibility to have the generating facility in your community. In the scheme of things, the city of Rancho Mirage is a community. We participate in the Coachella Valley Association of Governments. There is a committee there called the Energy and Environmental Resources Committee, which is responsible for a broad range of planning activities. Chief among them are utilities, including electricity. A subcommittee was recently appointed, and I attended the first meeting earlier this week, where we hope to look at short, medium, and long-term solutions. Short-term solutions, I'm not sure exactly what we'll come up with. Long-term solutions, I think the goal for all the communities of the valley is a degree of independence, a degree of control over what has happened so that we don't find ourselves in the same circumstances as we do now. The subcommittee of the Energy and Environmental Resources Committee is looking at the possibility of, are there connections that we can make with the windmill farms? Are there other sources of energy out there that locally that we may be able to touch base with and see if we can't keep that supply in the Coachella Valley? Wind generation is a real popular thing right now because it's finally economically feasible. And I know that there is a great deal of interest in the expansion of the windmill farms. I've heard that they would like to double the number of the windmills that you see in the same footprint. And that would mean having to go up higher with the new windmills and trying to capture a more constant and consistent wind. As we all know, sometimes the wind dies down, so you do have to think about how you're going to make that work. In the medium term, we hope to begin exploring opportunities with the California Energy Commission, which does have money. There's grant money set aside. We'd like to look at some alternatives, I think, through Sunline Transit in terms of what they're doing in exploration of hydrogen fuel. Are there byproducts that are being generated that could somehow be used to generate electricity? There's grant money to perhaps fund solar heat, especially in a new subdivision. We've all begun to talk about what are the changes maybe we could make in the building code and requiring new construction to go over and above Title 24 standards. The state has mandated certain features inside houses, insulation in the walls and ceiling, certain levels of appliances that have to be put in. But you can always do more. That's not obviously the optimum. So there's kind of a trade-off. Some cities, such as Santa Monica, have adopted a 15% plus. They do Title 24 standards, and then they require that the house be 15% more conserving. Now, if you want to achieve that by putting in better insulation or triple pane windows instead of double pane windows, that's fine. That's left up to the individual developer and builder, as well as homeowner, to decide what are the things that you're going to do. So all the communities will be looking at that over the medium term and say getting that on board, getting houses permitted. You're probably talking about having an impact 2 or 3 years from now. And then again, as I mentioned, long range, we're looking at what can we do to be more independent totally. Should we become a municipal utility? Or if not a municipal utility, then should we become a buyer on behalf of our residents of power? If not that, then what else is it that we can do? Of course, we always hear, why don't we just become a part of Imperial Irrigation District? That's a popular question that we get. There are service territory agreements between Edison and Imperial Irrigation District that do not, at this point in time, allow that. And we check with them periodically to find out the status. I met week before last with Edison. There's no change in the status in terms of that agreement. That agreement is set to expire at some point in the future. I believe the date that I heard from Edison was close to the year 2010. So at this point, the Rancho Mirage residents do not have the benefit, or have the option of being able to just say, we don't want to use Edison, we want to use Imperial Irrigation District.
When power problems do occur, Riverside County is ready. Dennis Arcuri reports.
Thank you, Janet, and hi, everybody. We're in front of the Indio County Administrative Center here in Indio, California, in what is the Sears Tower of the Coachella Valley. We're going to go inside now. We're going to go downstairs to the emergency coordination offices of the county, where we're going to meet up with Anthony Coletta, okay? All of these offices around here have to do with the county's emergency preparedness effort, and that, of course, applies to earthquakes, hazardous material spills, power outages, what have you. Tony? Tony? Here's Tony. Tony is one of 2 emergency services coordinators for the county. The other one's Rick Cook. I see you have a visual over here on the wall, and I think what we want to talk about today, since power is on everybody's mind, is what the county does, what you folks are prepared to do if we get those rolling blackouts going.
Absolutely. When we get notified of a stage 3, we do 2 different things. One is we initiate several conservation actions that we initiate. The second one, we notify all our cities and make some key notifications. On a county level, we're prepared to respond for any kind of event, no matter what it is. When we do have a stage 3 rotating blackouts, we would operate our emergency operations center here in Indio as well as in Riverside, and that's purely from a watch standpoint to monitor the rolling blackouts and be prepared to respond to any unanticipated events that occur during those rotating blackouts.
Now, how much forewarning do you have if there are going to be rolling blackouts in our area?
We may have as little as 10 minutes notified.
And what can you do at this point? You just, you're aware of traffic signal outages and that sort of thing?
Absolutely. Again, we do a very quick notification process, respond to the EOC to monitor the situation, and as we become aware of events that occur, notify the appropriate agencies.
Do you know if we are more likely to be involved in one of these rolling blackouts as time goes on? I mean, because obviously they've already hit some locations in the state. Do we get higher on the priority scale, do you think, as time goes on?
Well, I think our needs in Southern California are a little bit less based on the weather currently. So Northern California has experienced rotating blackouts, whereas Southern California has not yet.
Okay, now just a few quick tips from an expert on what people out there should be doing prior to the blackout and when one comes.
Well, by all means, have extra flashlights and batteries on hand for the rotating blackouts. Have them handy so when the lights do go out, you can find them. If you require special needs, as an example, special walking or assisted devices, special medications, make an agreement with a neighbor or a relative to check on you in the event that the blackouts do occur. And we've went through this last year with Y2K, and we do an awful lot of preparation with our folks out here, especially in the Coachella Valley. And again, reminded that the blackouts will only last for approximately 1 hour.
Tony Coletta is Emergency Services Coordinator along with Rick Cook here in the county building in Riverside, and these guys are prepared for any emergency, including the rolling blackouts, earthquakes, or what have you. So for now, that's it. I'm Dennis Arcuri, Legislative Assistant for Roy Wilson, and now take it away, Janet.
Thanks, Dennis. Remember, you can watch us on Time Warner Cable at 2:30 p.m. as well as 6 and 1 a.m. 7 days a week, with a new broadcast each week starting on Tuesday. For the Coachella Valley Community Report, I'm Janet Ralt. See you next time. The proceeding was brought to you as a community service by Time Warner Cable. This has been a Palm Springs Video Television production.